I was diagnosed with celiac disease in May of 2025. About 3 months down the line, going into Christmas during the COVID pandemic, I started experiencing stomach issues. I'd get up and I got another alert from my email where they say your test results have returned. So I was confused because I thought that was the only test that they ran for me. The doctor then called me the next day and they said, we want to schedule you for an endoscopy.
Every journey has a beginning, a moment when faith takes hold. In the middle of struggle and doubt, God's light still breaks through. Stories of healing, stories of hope, rooted in truth, grounded in grace. Growing together in faith, this is Rooted Testimonies. Real people, real faith. This is my story.
My name is Malik Redmond. I'm born and raised here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm 29 years old. Growing up, church was something that was a bit of a staple in my household. But as a kid, it's like you kind of don't understand the purpose of church and, how powerful of a role God has in your life. So I didn't like going to church as a kid, I'm going to be honest. And I think a lot of people can relate like that as a kid, where you didn't like going because it may seem boring, or you wanted to, watch football on Sundays or spend time with your friends or family on Sundays. But, that was something that we did do growing up. That was something that was taught in my household. My grandmother, she was actually Jehovah's Witness as well. So my grandma was a Jehovah's Witness, and my parents, they were Christian based. So I kind of had the best of both worlds in a sense, and was able to see like what different religions were like, what they believe and what they teach. I vividly remember going to the Kingdom Hall with my grandma on Sundays and Saturdays. And then I would also go to, the Christian churches with my parents on Sundays as well. And I want to say on average, probably about 2 to 3 times a month, we would go to the church and, meet different people. Sometimes I would go into the kids' classes. And from a young age, that's kind of when I built my understanding on what my faith should be like, and to see the people around me, what their faith was like, and, just following the path of God, following the righteousness path and doing the right things in God's eyes. And also just working on my prayer, strengthening my prayer on, how to properly pray, on what to talk about while I pray. And then just having a better understanding on who God is and who He wants you to be as a human being. I was just a kid, that had a lot of energy. I was super silly. I always wanted to be outside playing with my friends. Basketball was a passion of mine, started from the age of 5 years old. So growing up for me, life was just constantly about basketball. I knew from a young age who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do with basketball. Like I said, my story's always been based on about me being the underdog and, me trying to be the motivation for the people that look like me, and being motivation for the people that, felt as though they were the underdogs. Transition into that. Never really made the high school team. I had a coach, actually, I want to say it was my junior year of high school. He told me after trials that I wasn't good enough to play varsity basketball. So I actually played 1 year of high school basketball, and that was actually my JV year, 10th grade. And that was hard for me. A lot of my friends and everything, they were able to, reach the ceiling higher than me per se in high school. Were able to transition faster than I was. But I just kept working, kept believing in myself. My confidence was always so high that it came off across from people time to time, a little bit of a delusion. But I always tell people, you have to believe in yourself. You have to know who you are. I was able to have the blessing to be able to go to a tryout for Grace Harbor College. Tried out for their college basketball team, and I made the tryout. Then after that, I was able to get a scholarship. With the scholarship, I was able to, do some great things in college. I broke records down at Grace Harbor. And then I transitioned to a D2 after that. Kids that don't make the high school basketball team, they don't go on to get a college scholarship. I never played high school basketball. In my freshman year, I was averaging 15 points a game, and I always give a testament to my confidence, but I also give a testament to God, me believing in Him, knowing that, He had a plan for me, even though that I wasn't able to see that plan at the time being. It was just a focus of me not getting discouraged, me continuing to lean on my prayer with Him, and then also me trusting Him as well. In addition to that, not many people know, because I'm going to talk about this, but, I went to high school for 5 years. For people that do know, proficiencies were a thing in Las Vegas at the time. And when I was growing up, you needed to pass the proficiencies in order to graduate. So I actually started school early at the age of 5. So my original graduation class should have been 2014. But since I started school early, I was in the 2013 class, which I kind of started like behind other kids, if that makes sense. So I had to go to school for 5 years, couldn't pass my proficiencies. I kid you not, the last option that I had to take my proficiency, if I didn't pass that proficiency test, then I would have had to go get a GED. But I was able to pass that proficiency. And going back to that story, that's just another testament of no matter how hard life was for me at the time, no matter how discouraged I would get about not passing these proficiencies, I would just put in the work, the dedication, and I would trust in God and, know that he would have a higher purpose for me and a higher plan for me. Sometimes it is hard when when you're not feeling though that you're doing what you should be doing in life, or things aren't working the way you would like them to work for you. But like I always tell the young kids, God has a plan for us, and I've seen people achieve it all at 20 and lose it at 40. And I've seen people have nothing at 40 and gain it all at 60. So it's just about following God, believing who you are, believing in him, trusting in prayer, and doing everything the right way. Biggest motivation growing up. You're gonna hate me for this. So I'm gonna say the biggest motivation growing up is myself. And I say the biggest motivation for myself is because I was the underdog. I beat a lot of adversity. Being overlooked, not necessarily being the best academically in school, not being the best athletically. And the biggest motivation was myself. And the reason being is because I would try to be better each and every day. And I would try to be better than who I was yesterday. I'm a firm believer that my only challenge and the only competition is myself. That's the only person I want to be in competition with is myself. I never try to compare myself to the next person. I never try to run anybody else's race. I try to run my own race. And I would always visualize, and I would do affirmations, laws of attraction, and I would think about where I wanted to be 5 to 10 years from now. And it may sound crazy, but I would literally think about who I was 5 to 10 years from now, and I would try to challenge myself to be that person, but also try to be better than who I was the day before. So biggest motivation was myself. That's the easy question. Yeah, so my mom, she definitely was somebody that was pivotal in my life. My mom and I, we've always had a close relationship from a young age. It's funny because I have a specific memory of my mom when our relationship, like I said, we've always had a great relationship, but I have a specific memory of my mom on when that relationship turned over to the next level. And I've never even told this story. So one day her and I went jogging together and I was running on the outside of the street. Like, how, for example, when the cars are passing by, then you're on the curb and the person's on the other side. So I was the one running on the outside by the cars, and she grabbed me while we were jogging and she said, "Come on the inside, because if a car comes up on the curb, I'd rather me get hit than you." And it was like, that really stuck with me my whole life, and it made me think like, wow, like, I know they say like your mom should love you and your mom like loves you and takes care of you, whatever the case may be. But sometimes people don't show how much they love a person. And from that moment when I was a kid, it really showed me how much she actually loved me. My mom's always been nurturing. She's always had the vulnerability with me whenever it's needed. She's always guided me in the right path, and she's always talked to me and showed me the ropes on how to be a good person. One thing about my mom is she's a wonderful human being. She's a great person. If she feels like you're doing something that she doesn't agree with, she knows how to properly talk to you and lead you in the right direction. She's a great person when it comes to not judging you. She's a great person on just having that nurturing mother guidance. And I feel as though that's what's built our relationship from my adolescence age going into my adult age or so. I couldn't be here. I wouldn't be here, and I couldn't have came this far without my mom. She'd always supported me at my basketball games. She would take me to my practices. She would take me to the game. She would cheer me on. She would always give me advice. If I had a bad game in college, she would give me advice if I wasn't making my high school basketball teams. She would give me advice if I wasn't even playing in some of the games. So I couldn't have made it here without my mom for sure. So currently, right now, what I'm doing as far as work, I'll start with that. So I work for the city of Las Vegas. I've been with the city of Las Vegas for 2 years now. I'm a program manager for the Office of Emergency Management. And the Office of Emergency Management, our focus is on how to train people in the city of Las Vegas on how to handle emergencies in the case of catastrophes. So that includes preparing the community on how to handle house fires, how to survive in tornadoes, hurricanes, how to do EMS situations in the event of an emergency where, medical personnel are able to arrive on the scene in time. We give everyone the tools, the knowledge, the confidence, and the abilities on how to be able to properly take care of themselves, but also their community as well in the event of an emergency when medical personnel can't arrive in time. In addition to that, I am a father of 2. I have 2 sons, and I'm married as well, so a lot of my time does go into them. I'm just pouring into them, really trying to focus on right now teaching my sons on how to, just be good men. I know they're 2 and 5, so it may seem cliche or funny to say that right now, but I really try to pour into them. I'm a firm believer from the ages of 2 to 7. What you see in your mental, that kind of shapes the trajectory of how your life is going to be. There's a saying from the ages of 2 to 7, that's when we're the closest to God. So I try to give them affirmations. I try to make sure that they see how a man should love their woman, which is me making sure that I show their mom affection in front of them, make sure that I talk to their mom respectfully in front of them, make sure that I handle, my emotions properly in front of them. So that's big for me, just pouring into my children and then also pouring into my wife as well. One thing for me, being a husband and being a father, those are the 2 important things for me. 2 of the best things and 2 of the most important and hardest things I'll ever have to do in my life. So meeting my wife and knowing that was the one. So I'll start like this. So her and I, we come from 2 different backgrounds. So she comes from a small town called Lake Quinault, Washington. Her graduation class was 12, bro. Like, she comes from a very small town. She was also adopted at the age of 7. Adopted at the age of 7. I come from a big city, big graduation classes, a lot of people in and out of the city, navigating with a lot of people. So it was like the best of both worlds in a sense where, they say opposite do attract. So just getting to know her from the jump. The thing about her, and I always accredited her for this, is I was able to feel safe around her. And when I say able to feel safe around her, like she was a safe place in a sense where for one of the first times in my life, I felt as though that I was with someone that, fully understood me, didn't judge me, loved me for who I was, accepted me for who I was, not necessarily overlooked my flaws, but accepted my flaws and then helped me grow past those flaws, in addition of her, being someone that was a cheerleader on my sideline in a sense. So those are the main things that stick out for me, why I knew that she was for me. And then she's just a loving person as well. One thing that I would credit her for is she's super forgiving. She's not judgmental. Just being a loving person. And then in addition to that, I would say being a cheerleader for me again. Like I said, I talked about that a little bit, but when I say being a cheerleader, no matter what I do in life, whether it's being a parent, whether it's being a husband, whether it's work, whether it's me coming up with projects like I just talked about for the Celiac Foundation. She's always the cheerleader for me. She jumps right in. What can I do to help? What do you need from me? How can I make you a better person? How could I be better? So those are definitely some of the things that stick out for me. Her and I, we have had, some ups and downs. We had times where we split up for a little bit and we had to take the time apart to grow and come back together as a unit. But, within those times that we were apart, she was able to grow as a woman and I was able to grow as a man. And I always credit her and I laugh and I crack jokes to her because I always say, you're a better wife than I'm a husband. And not necessarily in a sense where we're trying to compete with each other, but, it goes back to her being a cheerleader and a motivator for me because, seeing how great she is as a wife and a mother makes me want to push myself to, go harder as a husband and, for us to meet on the same playing field. Yeah, I was scared as hell, but I was scared. Not necessarily to the sense where I wasn't scared because I didn't think I was going to be a great father. Like I said, I've always had the confidence on myself no matter what I was going to do in life, but I was scared to the sense where, what if I mess up? What if I'm not perfect? What if I do this wrong? Or what if he grows up and he's 18, 20 years old and he looks back and says, well, dad did this and I didn't agree with it and it gave me trauma. And that's something that's always stuck with me. So I wanted to do everything right. I wanted to do everything perfect. And, I know we're not perfect, but like I said, we always strive to be perfect. So for me, the fear came in is because what if I mess this up, or what if, I do things wrong? So that's when my fear came in. But, I'm one of the people where you put something in front of me and you need a task from me and I have a responsibility, I'm gonna lace my boots up and I'm gonna get to work and I'm gonna do it every single day, no matter what the odds are, no matter how many resources you have to give me. It doesn't matter. I don't care if I have a stick and I'm in the jungle, I'm gonna make do with that stick. So it's just believing in yourself, having that confidence that I keep talking about. So being a father for me, the transition starting off, it was a lot of fear and I was scared, but when I held King, my oldest, in my arms for the first time, then I was happy as hell, bro. Like I dropped some tears. Like I was really happy. And I'll never forget, he was born at Centennial Hills Hospital, and when we came home, my wife, she was obviously tired from giving birth. So I took King out of the bed and I took him to the living room because he couldn't sleep, and I rocked him to sleep. And I'll never forget, I was standing in the living room and I looked at him and I said, I'm not perfect. I'm gonna mess up and I'm gonna do things wrong, but no matter what, I'll always have your back. I'll always be a man that you respect. I'll always be a man that you look at as a mentor. I'll always be a man that you look at as someone that you love. And I'll always be a man that you look at where hopefully you say, I want to be like my dad one day. And so far, he's 5, my youngest is 2, but I feel like I'm doing a great job of that so far. It goes back to me not being perfect, but every single day I have that voice in the back of my head that tells me, like, they're watching. Make sure that you're their hero. Make sure that you're their idol. Make sure that you're their role model. And, I try to strive for those things each and every day. So best way I could put it, man. I was diagnosed with celiac disease in May of 2025. Celiac disease is a big disease where a lot of people think it's just quote unquote an allergy, but it's actually not an allergy. It's an autoimmune disorder that, affects over 50 different pieces of your body, such as, your oral health, your heart health, your organ health, depression, anxiety. It affects a lot of things. So I'm working on that project right now. It's expected to be done in April of 2026. So that's one of the things I'm also most excited about. 2020, so I had a lot of stress going on in 2020, and it's crazy because I feel like COVID had such an effect on us as humans, and we never really realized it in the time being. We now see it in 2025, then we think back, but when you're in that moment and when you're in the battlefield, it's hard to understand and assess really what's going on around you and the full scope of a picture. So I had a lot of stress going on. My wife, she was a medical assistant at the time, so she was working, doctor's office and everything weren't closed. So I worked at a nonprofit, and, I was working with that reshoot at the time through CCSD. So everything, as you remember, was virtual with CCSD. But on top of that, King was about 3 months at the time. So I was mentoring kids virtually. I had a 3-month-old with me at the house. It would be days where I wouldn't even leave the house. Days where, I wouldn't eat until it was lunchtime. I was making sure that he was fed. I was doing virtual mentorship with students. I was having meetings with principals. It was a lot of stress for me. And the reason I mention it is that because celiac disease you can have celiac disease based off of like stress triggers in your body. So about 3 months down the line, going into Christmas during the COVID pandemic, I started experiencing stomach issues. So the stomach issues, no matter what I ate, man, like the shit was crazy. No matter what I ate, I would have the stomach issues. I would have bloating, I would have cramps, I would have body aches from time to time. I would wake up with headaches, and, I would chalk it up at the time where maybe it's just because I'm not getting out the house enough, or maybe it's because of the stress, or maybe I'm not eating enough, maybe I'm not getting enough nutrition. So after Christmas during the COVID pandemic, I was like, all right, something's not right. I went to the doctor's office and, did blood work. They were like, okay, your blood work's good. We don't know what the issue is, so we're going to prescribe you Miralax. I took the Miralax and that joint was not working at all, man. Like, I took it for 1 day. And then after that, I was like, okay, I'm not going to deal with this anymore. Fast forward after that, the issues kept happening, but I just kept pushing them away because I'm like, all right, it's got to be something, but I don't think it's the food. So it kept happening year by year by year. So I would try different, diets. So tried the plant-based diet, that took a little bit of pressure off of my body and my stomach, but I knew there was something still wrong. Went to the doctor's office again for my yearly blood work. So I do annual blood work and annual physical. So 2025 of this year, which was May, I went to the doctor's office and got my blood work. Once again, the blood work came back good. And I told the doctor, I said, listen, man, I said, something's wrong, like with my stomach. I have stomach issues that I've been dealing with on and off for a few years. So they, did another test and they were like, okay, this second piece of blood work's coming back good. We're going to prescribe you Miralax. Same thing that the last doctor did. I was trying to tell him that's not going to work. Like, I know my body has said they're going to work. So he called me over the phone and he said, the other piece of test results that we did, they came back good. So would you like to go to a GI doctor? I don't know if that'll help, but what do you want? And I said, nah, I said, you have to send me to a GI doctor. Like, we got to figure this out. So I would really appreciate it if you write me a referral. They write me a referral to the GI doctor. And when I get to the GI doctor, she's asking my symptoms and everything. And she was a Black woman too. She was a little bit more understanding in a medical setting. So she was asking my symptoms. I was telling her everything that was going on. And she was kind of giving me that look too, like, I don't know if you know what you're talking about in a sense. Like, the look that they give you in the doctor's office, try to gaslight you in a sense. So I said, I would like to go to another specialist for testing. So she referred me for a full panel of testing. And the full panel of testing included allergy testing. So they tested me for shrimp allergy, wheat allergy, shellfish allergy, egg allergy, milk allergy. That came back, everything was normal. So I went into my client portal on my email, and when I saw that those results were normal, I was like, all right, I'm not even going to deal with it anymore. It doesn't make sense to go back. I'm going to have to find another GI doctor. I kid you not. The next day, I get up and I got another alert from my email where they say your test results have returned. So I was confused because I thought that was the only test that they ran for me. So it said you've been tested positive for celiac disease. So once I saw celiac disease, I just panicked, bro. Like, I didn't even know. You see the word disease and it's that notation in your mind where it's like, I got a disease, like something's wrong with me. And I just went into a panic, bro. So I started doing research, and when you do research on Google, that's the worst. You're like, oh, you gonna lose your life tomorrow. So kept doing the research and everything. The doctor then called me the next day and they said, we want to schedule you for an endoscopy. So I go in for the endoscopy. I was terrified, bro, because the endoscopy, they put you to sleep. It's like a full hospital procedure. You got to sign the consent forms that saying you may not wake up after this. So I'm scared as hell. So going for the endoscopy, they put me to sleep. They put a tube down my throat. So when they put the tube down your throat, that tests your bowel. And it tests to see like what your surrounding pieces inside your, where your organs and everything in your stomach look like. So did the endoscopy. I woke up from the endoscopy and they basically told me, they said, you've tested positive. This is the 100% confirmed that you do have celiac disease. After I found out that I had it for sure, there was a lot of emotions that came out of that, man. For real, because like I said, the notation of you hearing that you have a disease, you automatically think something's wrong with you. And then two, I always was a person where I had a strict diet, but that was a strict diet by choice. The strict diet by choice came because Black people, our genetics and our DNA and our family history, diabetes, cholesterol, all that type of stuff. So that's why my diet was so strict. But now I had my rights taken away from me, where my diet wasn't strict by choice. My diet was strict because I had no other choice. So that was hard for me. And then, learning out the different things about cross-contamination, where to eat, what not to eat, what places you can go, what places you can't go. That was hard for me as well. But once I was diagnosed with celiac disease, everything finally made sense because, like I mentioned, from time to time, I would deal with anxiety. I would deal with, mood swings. Sometimes, I would wake up with headaches back to back. I started having like bone issues. I would have stomach cramps. My energy would be low. It was rough. So it was, even though it was rough and it was a grieving stage, it was also good for me because I had, the closure. Now I know what was going on, and now I could attack that issue, and all these other symptoms that I'm dealing with, I don't have to go through that pain anymore. So with being diagnosed with the celiac disease, I was able to get closure, and I was able to figure out the root cause, and I was able to know what I have to stop doing to, get rid of those symptoms. I've been going to the gym. I started back up in the gym in January 2025, and I was trying the longest, to gain 10 pounds of muscle. I wasn't able to gain the 10 pounds of muscle before I was diagnosed. And when I went to the doctor, they told me the reason that you weren't able to gain that weight and the muscle that you were looking for is because when you have celiac disease and you continue to eat that gluten, your body's like drinking poison. So your body's not able to retain the nutrition. So once I cut out, the gluten, I was able to gain 10 pounds of muscle. So before I was diagnosed, I was 173, and now I'm currently 184 because I was able to cut out that gluten, and now my body's able to properly retain nutrition. I think the biggest piece for me about the celiac disease is when I went in for my endoscopy, the doctor actually said to me, Mr. Redmond, do you have any European in your bloodline or genetics? Because Black people normally don't get celiac disease. And, that was kind of disappointing for me to hear, because a thought came in my head, and I said to myself, how many Black people or people of color that don't have the financial means or the resources that I have to go to the doctor and figure out what is going on with them, how many of them have been gaslighted in a doctor setting and experienced these symptoms but have been turned away because they're a person of color? So I told myself, I said, you have to take this pain and this adversity that you've been dealing with being diagnosed with celiac disease and turn it into something positive. Turn it into something positive, not only for the Black and brown community, but turn it into something positive for, just people in general. Be a shining light and be a resource for them. And, make them feel seen, make them feel heard, make them feel appreciated. And just do your part in the community. Since a young kid, I've always felt like one of my purposes in life, one of the reasons God put me here was to make a difference in the world. And it was to make a change in the world. And it still is to make a change in the world. So those are some of the things that I strive for, some of the things that I live by when it comes to my faith, when it comes to how I move and operate in life, and just navigating through life as not only a Black man, but a man, and a father and a husband. So next for me, man, is continuing down that path and, being the father and being the husband I want to be. And then also getting back out into the community. I went through a time in life where I felt as though if you weren't in my inner circle and I didn't have a personal relationship with you, that you shouldn't know anything about me and you shouldn't have access to me. And I'm in that stage right now where, like I said, it goes back to my wife, her always encouraging me. She's been encouraging me and pushing me to, get back on track of following my purpose. Like I say, I've had that notation and the thought where if you're not in my inner circle, you don't have the right to have access to me in any way, any shape or form. But, I feel as though if I continue to live in that mindset, it's doing a disservice to not only God and what He has placed me here for, but also doing a disservice to my sons, because I want them to see me as someone that's always chased their dreams. And I want them to see me as someone that has made a difference in life. Bronx Tales, one of my favorite movies, he tells his son, one of the saddest things in life from a man is wasted talent. So I want to make sure that I'm not wasting my talent. I want to make sure that I'm getting back into the community. I want to make sure that I'm doing my part. And, encouraging people to strive for greatness, encouraging people, to have that motivation, to, have the belief in themselves, to trust in God. And I always shine my light on other people, younger kids especially, that look just like me. If I can do it, you can do it too. If I didn't pass my proficiencies all these years and I passed it on the last time, you can do it too. If I didn't play high school basketball and, I got a basketball scholarship and did great things in college, got a basketball degree, or not a basketball degree, got a bachelor's degree, you can do it too. So like I said, next for me is getting back into the community, making a change, making an impact, and, being the best father and, being the best husband for my wife that I can be. So that's next for me. Where do I see myself in 5 to 10 years? That's a great question. I see myself still here in Las Vegas for the next 5 to 10 years. I see myself owning a house. I see myself being debt-free. And in addition to that, on a professional level, in the next 5 or 10 years, I'm going to speak this into existence right now. I see myself being a manager or a director for a department within the city of Las Vegas. So if money wasn't an issue, what life would look like for me. So I would definitely have a big house with a backyard, fish tank with sharks in it. On a real note, so if money wasn't an issue for me, like I said, I don't know if I never been the type, me having a wife and 2 kids and myself, I don't know if I would think like mansion, I want something like that, but I would definitely have a big house, something that I feel comfortable in, something that I could call home, probably living up in Summerlin or Anthem, up on the mountain, up on the hill. Cars would be paid off, debt-free, financial freedom, that's the best way to go. And I would be traveling a lot more, different countries, passport stamped up, going all over the East Coast, going over the Midwest, showing my sons, different things throughout the country, different states, different cities. So if money wasn't an issue, that would be my focus for sure. One goal that I have for my kids, both my sons, is when they're adults and they get up every day and they look in the mirror, I want them to be happy with the men that they are every single day. That's the best goal and the one that I have for my kids. And I feel like I'm laying that foundation for them right now on how they watch me move and navigate through life, and, the life and the affirmations and the blessings that I pour into them. So I would definitely say I want them to be happy on who they are when they look in the mirror. And I also would say I want them to be sure on what path they want to go down in life, whether, that's work, whether it's with their kids, whether it's with their wife, whatever the case may be. I want them to be sure, and I really want them to make sure that they think everything through, and they have a plan, a goal, and a backup plan. If I could ask God for a couple of things that He would deliver, what would it be? I would say great health and happiness for my family. And I would also say I would ask God to make sure that my 2 sons are better men than I am. Final thing that I would like to say is, one, I thank you for, allowing me to do this and express myself on this platform. And then secondly, I would say best advice I can give anyone out there is, if you don't have a mentor, go get yourself one. And if you don't have a therapist, go get yourself one. Sometimes in life, we pat ourselves on the back for feeling like, we have achieved everything by ourselves, or we didn't need help, or we didn't need handouts. But, you don't get a cookie for that at the end of the day. Life is about using your resources, utilizing your resources, and how the people around you have uplifted you and helped you, and how you've uplifted and helped people around you as well. So best advice I can give everyone out there is get yourself a mentor, get yourself a therapist, believe in God, trust God, know that He has a plan for you. And last but not least, I would say just be a good person. Again, you don't get a cookie for being a good person, but it feeds the soul. You are who you are at the end of every day. And as long as you do the right things in life, God will make sure that He has a higher purpose for you, as long as you believe in His plans, as long as you trust Him, and you get up every single day and be better than who you were yesterday, and have that confidence that you can achieve and that you will achieve, and everything will work out.